CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The UN court's ruling on a border dispute draws opposing reactions from Kenya and Somalia. China pledges $230 million to support developing countries with biodiversity conservation efforts. And the UN calls for investigations into the use of force by Libyan authorities against migrants. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi, and with me is Uche Okoronkwo with a preview of your business news.
Thank you, Lindy. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Bits. Egypt, Senegal and Berbera will benefit from a $1.7 billion deal to modernize logistics in Africa. And MTN officially opens its IPO to sell 20% of its shareholding to the public. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Lindy.
Thanks, Uche. We start the hour in the Horn of Africa, where there have been reports that government forces have launched coordinated attacks on all fronts against forces from the northern Tigray region. CGTN's Girum Chala joins us now live from Addis Ababa with the latest. Girum, has there been any confirmation by the Ethiopian government over these latest reports?
Well, the Ethiopian authorities are saying that it is very important to handle, first of all, Lindy, this situation in the northern part of the country, which is the insecurity and the ongoing conflict in the north. And according to ENDF, the Ethiopian National Defense Force source, they are telling us that there is an offensive at the moment going on, both on air and on the ground, in order to finish the job. Saying that it is important, as I was saying earlier, to remove, first of all, the TPLF force from the Amhara regional state. They have conquered different places, including the historic Lalibela city itself, and also some pocket areas in the Afar regional state. That is what has been reported so far, by the way, saying that the TPLF has extended the conflict into the neighboring regions. Now, we understand that the war has continued. TPLF has also released a press statement saying that it is retaliating the freshly started attacks against it, and it is even controlling places. So we cannot verify this information, Lindy. As you know, there is information blackout in that regional state, but we can confirm that there is now an ongoing war in the northern part of the country, according to the government, planning to finish the job, and the TPLF is saying that they are defending it.
Well, thank you so much, Girum Chala, joining us there live from Addis Ababa. Now, a ruling by the International Court of Justice over a sea border row between Kenya and Somalia has sparked mixed reactions in the two East African countries. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta rejected the court's decision to hand Somalia control of most of a potentially oil and gas-rich area in the Indian Ocean. For the citizens of Somalia, however, this is good news. ICJ judges unanimously ruled that there was no pre-existing agreement on the maritime boundary, as Kenya had claimed in its argument.
The maritime border dispute has strained the relationship between Somalia and Kenya since 2014. That's when Mogadishu filed the case at the UN's top court. And Tuesday's verdict has not eased the stalemate.
While Kenya is not surprised by the decision, it is profoundly concerned by the import of the decision and its implications for the Horn of Africa region and international law generally. At the very onset, Kenya wishes to indicate that it rejects in totality and does not recognize the findings in the decision. This decision is, in the circumstances, a zero-sum game, which will only strain the relations between our two countries. It will also reverse the social, political, and economic gains and potentially aggravate the peace and security situation in the fragile Horn of Africa region.
His Somalia counterpart, President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, however, sees the ruling as an opportunity to strengthen ties between the two countries.
By respecting the laws and the international conventions of the world, the Somalia federal government clearly states that it abides by the decisions of the court, and we expect the neighboring country, Kenya, to respect the international rule of law and forget its ambition that is based on misleading.
Somali citizens are also happy with the outcome.
It's a big happy day for all Somali people after ICJ verdict on the Somalia-Kenya maritime dispute. The case was in court for the past 7 years. However, it's historical victory for all of us.
We should not celebrate because it's our territorial waters and we should possess it.
The ICJ's judgment is final and cannot be appealed, but the court has no means of enforcing its rulings. And with Kenya refusing to recognize its authority, it's a matter of what next. Chao Mugono, CGTN.
Well, for more on the ICJ ruling, we spoke to Dr. Hassan Kananje a little earlier. He's the director of the Horn Institute in Kenya and also a practicing specialist in conflict analysis and resolution. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, the challenge with international law is there is, especially the one that comes from the ICJ, is there is no credible enforcement mechanism. It doesn't have the tool to enforce it. And therefore, its implementation is largely going to be based on the willingness of the parties in question to do that, absent, of course, of a Security Council resolution that forces the parties to do it, is going to be dependent just on the willingness of the two parties in question to abide by the ruling, and in which case Kenya has rejected recognition of that ruling. Unfortunately, in recent years, the Horn of Africa region in particular has become a theater of global geopolitics. And in the current maritime dispute, there is increasingly the presence of not only Western interests in particular, but also Western corporations that have played a part in actually fueling the dispute that we are seeing, in as much as that they are contributing to, of course, other disputes within the region. And so it is going to be, I think, very important that there is an African mechanism in the way in which they're going to respond to this. Now, increasingly, though, both the Western interests in particular and Western corporations, their interests will not be achieved, especially with regard to the disputed area, if the dispute is going to continue. And so I think it's the best interest of everybody concerned to perhaps urge the parties to try and negotiate a settlement that is going to allow for exploitation of those resources, but also for the management of the maritime activity that is expected to take place going forward.
More than 100 countries have joined a call to action to better protect life on Earth and push for a sustainable future. The Kunming Declaration was adopted in southwest China's Yunnan province, where the United Nations Biodiversity Conference is underway. It includes commitments to help fund conservation in developing countries. The COP15 meeting aims to draw a blueprint for environmental goals over the next decade. World leaders have called for better awareness, broad consensus, and concrete action to preserve biodiversity. The Kunming gathering prepares the ground for the key COP26 climate summit in Glasgow at the end of this month. Well, China has pledged some $230 million to set up a fund to help developing countries with biodiversity conservation efforts. Chinese President Xi Jinping made the announcement at the ongoing UN COP15 summit in Kunming. CGTN's Yang Jinghao finds out how nations could benefit from the fund.
And definitely we are hoping that Bangladesh will also benefit from this fund, and especially not only Bangladesh but the climate vulnerable countries, the developing countries, the least developed countries also, where there is a huge resource crunch. And due to this process of globalization, we all know that some countries are being marginalized. They are cut off from the mainstream of the world economy, so they also have to be helped.
Some of the biggest rainforests and most important ecological areas are in developing countries, so they really do need that assistance. Of course, being somebody in conservation, I would love to have seen that figure to be bigger. We always want more money, But I think it's, any new money for biodiversity conservation is very, very welcome.
I think it's possible that other countries and perhaps also non-country actors, like perhaps businesses or philanthropic organizations, could perhaps also contribute to this fund. I see that's possible. I think the Asian Investment and Infrastructure Bank provides a good example where China has taken the lead to develop a new financial institution where other countries became members and jointly managed. Probably the best way to spend this money is to focus it on developing countries and especially on efforts where those countries want to protect biodiversity and to support them, for example, in identifying what are the most valuable areas to protect and conserve, to develop their capacities there, so to train people there and to provide them with the tools that are needed to do this effectively.
Well, let's take a look at some of the reactions to Chinese President Xi Jinping's keynote address at the COP15 Leaders Summit. Here's what some Zambian experts had to say.
Listened to the speech made by the Chinese President Xi Jinping, and the very first thing that stands out for me is the theme for the Biodiversity Convention Conference, working together to build a community of all life on Earth. If you notice what's been going on over the last few years worldwide, we've all focused so much on development, and development that's not taken into account consequences on the environment. So it's good to have a theme that focuses on life.
I think the move that China has taken is good because the influence that China holds now in the global community is quite huge. And not only that, China also has huge influence in our own country here because there are a lot of investments that China has made through various businesses, and so we believe that would be a good thing.
Egypt's Environment Minister has officially handed over the chairmanship of the UN Conference on Biodiversity to her Chinese counterpart during an online video conference ceremony. During the virtual event, the Egyptian minister talked about Egypt's role during COP14 and the cooperation with China to prepare for COP15. Here's Adel Al-Makhraoui with more.
On Monday, the Egyptian Environment Minister officially hosted an online meeting with China's Minister of Ecology and Environment to hand over the chairmanship of the Conference on Biodiversity COP15. Egypt briefed China about the achievements made during Cairo's leadership to CBD COP14.
It's been a long and a fruitful journey since Egypt took the chairmanship of the 14th Biodiversity Conference. I'm happy to be handing over the chairmanship of the conference to our brotherly nation, the People's Republic of China. We wish them a successful and fruitful leadership and to continue making progress over the efforts we worked on during the past 3 years.
Biodiversity includes all plants, animals, and microorganisms that exist in all ecosystems. The interaction of this creates goods and services, which means that our meals are products of biodiversity. It is the foundation of life. Egypt made many achievements during its chairmanship, and because of the pandemic, we realized that viruses that come from animals are dangerous, and that made us realize that our relationship with nature must be regulated.
The handover from Cairo to Beijing included a series of discussions about the global environmental challenges that lie ahead.
As the current chair of the Biodiversity Conference, China has many challenges in continuing the global negotiations for an environmental roadmap and elevating aspirations. We encourage China's move and announcement to decrease emissions, which is a vital issue affecting climate change. We welcome and value China's moves. I look forward to seeing China build up what we have reached to tie climate change issues with biodiversity.
Egypt was the first African country to chair the Conference on Biodiversity since its establishment in 1992. The chairmanship is usually a 2-year term. Yet, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Egypt's chairmanship was extended by an additional year. Handing over the chairmanship of the UN Biodiversity Conference to China, Egypt has provided a full file of the progress Cairo achieved in the past 3 years, hoping that Beijing can build upon it and reach bigger goals for the next period. Adel Al-Makhraoui, CGTN, Cairo.
Time for a short break now. Here's what's still ahead on Africa Live. The UN calls for investigations into the use of force by Libyan authorities against migrants. And conflict and extreme weather pose a threat to public health in Mozambique. Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories. Let's have a look. We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis,
Syria,
Juba,
Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice. The UN Human Rights Office has called for a prompt, thorough, impartial and independent investigation into the use of force by Libyan authorities against migrants and asylum seekers. The announcement comes after armed forces in Tripoli conducted a series of mass arrests last week. The UN office says more than 5,000 people have been sent to overcrowded detention centers. Well, for more on this, we earlier spoke to Amira Al-Said, a political analyst and editor at the Egyptian Gazette in Cairo.
A few weeks ago, the House of Representatives passed the non-confidence vote for this government. So now it acts as a caretaker government. And soon, according to the UN-backed roadmap, there should be elections this December. So I think conducting investigation in this period, there are many questions surrounding this decision. But I think the Libyan government will try to ease the tension. It will try to justify what happened for the illegal migrants. For example, the government said that we are now facing the crime, but actually the UN spokesperson on the other hand said that if you want to face a crime or traffickers, you have to target those people, not the migrants who themselves are the victims of such traffickers. Due to the ill treatment and sexual abuse and the bad treatment of illegal migrants, we have seen that, for example, last year, the UN Secretary General, he called for closing such detention centers. Also, the Libyan government said that a few months ago, it said that it will close these centers. But actually, this statement by the government has been seen as a way to consolidate its political control, not to, rather than improving better conditions for illegal migrants. So I think now the UN is trying to put an end to such a dilemma, to put an end for the ill treatment and heavy-handed treatment for the illegal migrants, especially that by the 1st of this October, we have seen that a major incident happened in west of Tripoli in one of the illegal or informal camps which in Krikaj, and we have seen that many children and women were arrested and handcuffed. So now the UN is trying to put an end for this responsibility. In the last few years, we have seen since 2015 the issue of illegal migration was a top priority for the European Union, but it seems that its tools to close the detention centers or to provide or to ensure the safety of illegal migrants were ineffective. So I think in the upcoming period, the European Union will try to find a safe mechanism to protect the migrants and also to keep the safety of the European countries who are bearing the brunt of such illegal migration.
Well, France has in the past week had a few run-ins with several of its former colonies. Algeria has recalled its ambassador from Paris, while Mali summoned the French ambassador to Bamako over separate comments made by French President Emmanuel Macron. The tensions followed a move by Paris to enforce stricter visa conditions for Algerian, Tunisian and Moroccan nationals. Adnan Chouachi reports.
Ahmed Ounais is a former Tunisian foreign minister. The expert on Francophonie ties explains that the uneasy ties between France and its former colonies were triggered by France's internal political debate on immigration.
The conflict between France and its former colonies has always existed, but the recent crisis is the result of the politicization of the migration and colonial era topics during the presidential election debate. French candidates want to influence their voters. North Africa and the South in general are not a real concern. Only votes count for the moment.
Ounais added that France escalated tensions by reducing the number of visas for Tunisians, Algerians and Moroccans because their governments refused to take back thousands of irregular migrants.
The problem started when French authorities informed the governments in Tunisia, Algeria and Morocco about the difficulties it faces to repatriate a huge number of undocumented migrants who were arrested by French police for committing crimes on French soil. France is putting pressure on Maghreb countries.
Experts assert that the current diplomatic dispute between Paris and Algiers shows the complex relationship between France and its former colonies. The remarks made in late September by French President Emmanuel Macron that the Algerian nation did not exist before French colonial rule sparked a storm of condemnations in Algeria. France occupied Algeria for 132 years.
Algeria has always called for France to recognize colonial crimes and to apologize, but France continues to escalate and hurt the feelings of Algerians. The recognition and apology mean a political commitment and financial compensations for the victims of genocide. Algeria also says France must clean up Algerian nuclear test sites in the desert, and this has a high cost.
According to the OIF, postponing the 18th summit of La Francophonie will allow Tunisia to organize this major event in the best possible conditions. France says this event will bring together French-speaking countries, while critics say Paris aims to maintain its influence over its former colonies, especially in Africa. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
A Chinese-owned mining firm has constructed a modern laboratory for studying malaria parasites in the southeast of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Malaria is a leading cause of death in the Central African nation. The lab aims to use its research to help reduce the prevalence of the disease in the region. Here's CGTN's Chris Ochamringa with more.
Malaria, one of the oldest diseases known to man in a modern setting. This laboratory was built by a mining firm, Tenke Fungurume, in the DRC's southeastern province of Lualaba. The province has had a high prevalence of malaria for years.
In the past, we were using ordinary insecticides to kill mosquitoes, but malaria cases remained high. We conducted studies in this laboratory and found that the mosquitoes had developed resistance to the insecticides. It's thanks to the laboratory that we have managed to change our strategy.
The Chinese-owned firm built the lab as part of its corporate social responsibility obligations to the community. The DRC previously had only one laboratory in the capital Kinshasa, equipped to research malaria parasites and other infectious diseases. According to the World Health Organization, the DRC has the second highest number of malaria cases and deaths globally after Nigeria.
We have put this laboratory in place to raise mosquitoes so that we can monitor their development. The surveillance we are carrying out will help us find the most effective interventions for dealing with malaria.
Malaria is caused by parasites transmitted to people through bites by mosquitoes. The disease has continued to claim lives in the DRC despite the government's malaria control programs. Modern facilities like the laboratory in the DRC are raising hopes of preventing malaria deaths.
It's very good news that a country as big as the DRC has got a modern lab for studying malaria. We've been worried about COVID-19 and other deadly diseases like HIV, But malaria has actually been killing more people in our country than all those other diseases.
In 2019, African leaders committed to allocate more funds to eliminate malaria by 2030, but that goal is still far from reach for the DRC and other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. The DRC government is currently facing several epidemics, a hunger crisis, and a conflict in the country's east, which have all stretched its finances thin. It's depending on support from aid agencies and wealthy nations like the US and China to try and prevent malaria deaths and provide better healthcare services to its large population. Chris Sochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
The head of Tunisia's national anti-cancer program has revealed that more women are volunteering to undergo cancer screening since over the past 5 years. Health authorities say this phenomenon shows that women in the North African country are increasingly aware and concerned about their health. Adnan Chouachi reports.
Dr. Buthaina Zanet is a member of the Tunisian Association for the Assistance of Breast Cancer Patients. She says that with an incidence rate of 58.4 cases for 100,000 women, breast cancer accounts for 30% of all cancers affecting women in the North African country.
Breast cancer is the first cancer affecting women in the world. It accounts for 30% of all cancers. It's the first cause of mortality for women. It's very different in Tunisia from the rest of the world because it affects younger women. The average age for female cancer patients in Tunisia is 35, while the average age in the world is between 40 and 70 years.
The expert added that about 90% of the early screened breast cancer patients could be cured.
Despite the awareness campaigns in Tunisia, breast cancer is still detected too late in some regions of the country. If the detection and diagnosis happens early, the cure is faster and more efficient.
Lamia is a 54-year-old breast cancer survivor. She's now helping raise awareness during Breast Cancer Awareness Month this October.
Learning about my breast cancer happened by chance. In 2019, I heard about the early screening campaign during Pink October. I was desperate, but the doctors volunteered to help me overcome this difficult experience. I was lucky because the cancer was in the early stage and the cure worked well. Now I encourage early screening to detect early signs of breast cancer.
According to the latest figures of the National Anti-Cancer Program, 3,500 new breast cancer cases were recorded last year. This number is expected to rise to 5,900 in 2030. Tunisia had reported 12.5 deaths for every 100,000 women in 2020. Tunisian breast cancer doctors and specialists say lifestyle changes, especially unbalanced diet, smoking, sedentary lifestyle, lack of breastfeeding, and genetic predisposition are among the factors that contribute to breast cancer risk. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
Widespread displacement due to insecurity in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado region is putting an enormous strain on existing water and health facilities. The International Committee of the Red Cross says the shortage of safe water, poor sanitation and inadequate medical services poses a looming threat to public health. CGTN's Joy Kirukijuma has the details.
For Mendina and other residents in Montepuz, this pond is where they get their water.
This water is for drinking. The water is also good for washing clothes and dishes, but most of the time we collect it for drinking.
Mendina's home is in Mozambique's northern Cabo Delgado province. The region has seen an escalation of militant violence, which has sent hundreds of thousands fleeing their homes. This has put an enormous strain on existing water and health facilities. Recurring cyclones and floods had already damaged existing infrastructure. Aid agencies warn that a shortage of safe water, poor sanitation and inadequate medical services are a looming threat for displaced people.
People from all over the part of this town, with many IDPs, they have to walk up to an hour to fetch water from here. This is the only spring, and you can see it's an unprotected spring. There is washing going on, and you can really see here why, for instance, cholera is such a big issue in this town.
The World Health Organization says there were 3,400 cholera cases in Cabo Delgado at the start of August.
We spoke to people here who have been displaced multiple times in the past 12 to 18 months, and there is a very serious need to provide more support here in this area of the north of Mozambique.
Diarrhea has become a major cause of death among children under 5. The situation is exacerbated by the fragile health infrastructure. ICRC says around 80% of health centers in the 9 most conflict-affected northern districts of Cabo Delgado are not functioning. The organization says it is working with local authorities to rehabilitate existing water and health infrastructure and to build new ones. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
Your business news up next. Here's Uche with the latest.
Thank you, Lindy. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. Egypt, Senegal and Berbera will benefit from a $1.7 billion deal to modernize infrastructure in Africa. And MTN officially opens its IPO to sell 20% of its shareholding to the public.
Taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Over the last 14 hours, no break.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
And let's start off with some corporate news. A joint investment to modernize logistics infrastructure in Africa has been agreed between the Dubai ports giant DP World and the UK's development finance agency CDC Group. Now, the $1.7 billion investment will initially focus on expanding 3 ports, namely Egypt's Ain Sokana, Senegal's Dakar, and Berbera in Somalia's breakaway region of Somaliland. All the ports are operated by DP World. The partners hope the investment, which they plan to expand to other regions in Africa, will help to accelerate inbound and outbound trade for the continent. Now, according to CDC, the expansion of the 3 ports will support 5 million jobs and add $51 billion to total trade by 2035. And moving on now, the slow rollout of COVID-19 vaccines is dragging the recovery of the aviation sector in Africa. That is according to the International Air Travel Association. The association says that Africa is lagging behind other regions in its vaccine rollouts, which will impact international travel recovery. Now, airlines in the region are expected to post a $1.5 billion net loss next year. And IATA says the airline industry is facing an uneven recovery from the pandemic and that regions with large domestic markets, faster vaccination rollouts and less restrictive government policies will continue to recover faster than the other parts of the world. And in Egypt, passenger car sales in the country have continued to strengthen in August, rising about 15%, and that's compared to the same period last year. Now, according to the Automotive Information Council, local distributors moved some 18,300 units during the month, and that's up from 15,900 in August 2020. Now, on a monthly basis, sales rose about 3% from the 17,800 in July. Here's CGTN's Yasser Kim with more.
Car sales in August have continued their upward trajectory amid a steady rise in demand.
The lack of cars in the market last year during the pandemic have prevented clients from buying their needs. Therefore, a large number of consumers this year had the appetite to go purchase the cars they wanted. Now there is huge demand that exceeds supply, so much that dealers are selling at overprice.
What attracted attention in the monthly auto report is that trucks and buses have seen the highest sales increase amongst all vehicles, recording a hike of 32% year on year.
August is the last month before school begins. There is more demand for minibuses, trucks, and other vehicles for transport services. Meanwhile, there is a short supply of private cars. The alternative apparent in August were buses and small trucks for these reasons. First, banks are strongly financing these vehicles. Second, the showrooms and dealers that can't find private cars have transferred their capital into trucks and buses. Third, car-hailing companies like Uber and Careem, who can't find drivers with private cars, have introduced new transport services using small trucks, minibuses, and small vans. All this pushed the sales of this type by 32 to 33%.
The numbers seem to reflect a sense of optimism for the Egyptian auto market, whose automotive industry is one of the sectors benefiting from the wider economic uplift. However, some experts like Ala El-Saba, owner of El-Saba Automotive, warns the future might not be so rosy amid a semiconductor shortage.
There are several problems that will reduce sales next period. No doubt, the semiconductors are the main reasons that's causing the global problem. Its absence has led to a big drop in production in many companies. The parent companies sent to us and the distributors warning us not to book any cars for the short term. They won't be sending new cars till the end of the year.
What makes it worse is that sales are expected to fall again in the last quarter of 2021, despite the increased demand.
Because there are no cars to buy in the first place, demand hasn't dropped. People have the appetite to buy, but supply is low. There is no clear vision of when production of semiconductors will resume. Car producers are on the waiting list for semiconductors, and it's a long waiting list that exceeds 6 months.
There is fear a continuation of this shortage could have a damaging effect on the Egyptian auto market that has been slowly rebounding from the effects of the coronavirus-led recession. Yes Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And moving on to the telecom sector now, mobile telecom operator MTN Uganda has officially opened its initial public offering. It is selling 20% of its shareholding to the public. Now, this follows approval from the Capital Markets Authority and the Uganda Securities Exchange. The offer price has been set at around 56 cents, US cents per share. Here's CGTN's Isabel Nakiria reporting.
Ugandans now have a chance to own a piece of MTN Uganda. The mobile telecom operator has offered to sell 4.5 billion shares. The telecom giant hopes to raise $240 million from the initial public offering.
We wanted to achieve localization through listing. We wanted to make sure that as many as possible Ugandans can get access to applying for a share.
MTN Uganda has 15 million phone subscribers and also offers mobile financial services. The decision to list is in line with the new license requirements by the government. which compel all telecom companies with a national operator's permit to list at least 20% of their shares. MTN says its priority goal now is to drive local ownership of its business across the markets in which the company operates. The company has opened a mobile IPO that will allow buyers to purchase shares using their telephone mobile money accounts.
When using the MIPO platform for applying for MTN Uganda shares, you will get 10 bonus shares for every 100 shares you apply for.
While priority will be given to Uganda, the shares will also be floated to other East African community investors. The IPO is expected to boost the number of retail investors at the Uganda Securities Exchange from about 40,000 to 200,000.
It provides diversification for investors to be able to invest in a new market segment, in a new company and a new sector within the economy.
The IPO is expected to close in 6 weeks. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
And heading to Nigeria now, the country has earned itself the title of Africa's Bitcoin nation. Of course, an unstable naira is contributing to the popularity of cryptocurrencies in the country. But Nigeria's central bank still remains quite critical of Bitcoin. It barred local banks from working with cryptocurrencies in February, warning of severe regulatory sanctions. Even so, Nigerians' appetite for crypto has only increased, as CGTN's Najma Abdir-Razak reports.
Sly Meginda has been producing artwork since 2017. Like a growing number of Nigerian artists, the 27-year-old is selling his pieces on cryptocurrency platforms after COVID-19 lockdowns made traditional exhibitions difficult.
The naira is digressing, and we're trying to keep the value of the art. So cryptocurrency currently is going on the right direction, and the world is jumping on it because we're in a digital world, like I said. So crypto is just something good for the arts to move forward. So that's the currency where people don't think that I'm paying too much or I'm paying less.
Nigerians are turning to crypto for business to protect their savings as the country's fiat currency, the naira, continues to lose value. Nigeria's central bank banned local banks from working with cryptocurrencies in February, warning of severe regulatory sanctions. In August, it also froze the accounts of some crypto users for allegedly sourcing funds from illegal foreign exchange dealers. The move, however, has not stopped Nigeria's appetite for crypto.
I'm just beginning to realize how late I am joining the crypto market, because this is one thing that has already gone far, but I feel it's still not too late. Crypto is the future. Digital currency is the future. Everything is going digitalized now, and I think it's something we really need to roll with.
According to research firm Chain Analysis, in March, just after the central bank ban, the dollar volume of cryptocurrencies sent from Nigeria rose to $132 million, up 17% from the previous month. Transactions in June were above 25% above the same month last year. Peer-to-peer platform Paxful also experienced a 57% rise in trading volume in Nigeria in the year to June, while user numbers surged 83%. Paxful recently opened an office in Abuja to lobby the government to change its attitude to crypto.
Everything begins with education, and what we're seeing is the Nigerian people are exceptionally hungry and receptive for this education. It's only in Africa when you start talking about cryptocurrency not as a means of investment or speculation, but as a means of exchange, that people get really excited. And what we've seen is the Nigerian youth have built their own businesses offering financial services for their friends and family.
According to data retrieved from Google Trend, Nigeria, Africa's biggest economy in GDP terms, has been adjudged as the only country with a perfect score on interest in Bitcoin. That appetite is expected to even grow further as many Nigerians shift their spending habits to embrace digital currencies. Najma Abdir-Razak, CGTN.
And now to some international news. A shortage of coal is now putting pressure on many of China's power plants. And in order to cope with the situation, major coal mining regions in the country have now ramped up production to ease the shortages. Northern China's Shaanxi province, known as the country's coal capital, is no exception. Here's CGTN's reporter Hu Shuao with more.
Coal production lines are working at full capacity at the Tongxing coal mine of the Jingneng Holding Coal Industry Group in the coal capital of Datong in North China's Shaanxi province. The state-owned group is the largest coal company in the province, with its headquarters based in the capital city of Taiyuan. The Tongxing coal mine is a major supplier of power coal in China, with an annual production capacity exceeding 10 million tons. Over the past Golden Week holiday, more than 700 of their employees kept working to expand production to meet the surging energy demand across the country.
During the national holiday, Tongxing Coal Mine produced 154,000 tons of coal, an increase of 11,000 tons over the same period of last year. We've also increased daily freight train lines from 2 to 3.
Tongxing is among many coal mines of the Jingneng Holding Group that have unleashed advanced production capacity to increase supply. They've been striving to enhance working efficiency at all chains. As winter approaches, the priority is to keep residents warm. The group has also reduced the coal transportation for uses other than power and heat. As commissioned by the central government, Shaanxi just signed mid- and long-term contracts to supply coal to 14 regions in the country. The Jingneng Holding Group now sends coal to 6 regions: Jilin, Anhui, Zhejiang, and Jiangsu provinces, the Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, and Shanghai.
We've actively communicated with the 6 regions to ensure supply for them. During the National Day holiday, we produced 8.8 million tons of coal, an increase of 400,000 tons than planned.
Official figures show Shaanxi now has more than 660 coal mines. The recent heavy rainfalls forced 60 of them to suspend production. But local officials say now only 4 of them remain halted, while all the others are back to work. The temporary suspension won't affect Shaanxi's coal output. Hu Chao, CGTN, Shaanxi Province.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up later on Global Business Africa, we'll be looking at the implications of Kenya's decision to disregard a ruling by the International Court of Justice over its maritime border row with Somalia. Of course, all that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to you.
Thanks, Uche. Well, let's take a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Reactions from Nigeria as government grants paternity leave for civil servants.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival, and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
A fire broke out at Egypt's El Gouna Conference and Cultural Center. The center is known for hosting the El Gouna Film Festival, which is due to start on Thursday. The blaze is said to have started in the main conference hall. Festival officials have confirmed that the fire is now under control and no casualties are involved. They also announced the festival will still take place between the 14th and the 22nd of October. New fathers in Nigeria are now entitled to 2 weeks paternity leave. It is the most recent reform in the country's civil service in 13 years. And many see it as a major milestone for the West African nation, where childcare is often considered a woman's obligation. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reports.
Israel Pender is a second-time dad. He's been excited about caring for his newborn, but he's not been able to get the much-needed time off work. Now he sees the 2-week paternity leave approved by government as a step in the right direction, but he doesn't think it's enough.
I think it's a very good thing that the government has done. But if the government can look into it and consider the huge impact fathers can make in terms of, assisting their wives and helping to bond with the newborn babies, I think the government should even extend the time.
All a new mom needs is an extra hand, really. The support of someone to help with the baby. It's invaluable. Your parents can't always be available. They come for the first one because most times you're so new at that first experience. But the second time, they might not have the luxury of having your parents come over. So having your partner with you is really invaluable.
The paternity leave debate has been ongoing in Nigeria for decades now. Parliament turned down a paternity leave bill in 2018. Lawmakers said culture and the economy weren't prepared for it. Now the government's taking steps to change the norm.
When their spouses or wives have given birth to a newborn baby, or if the husband and wife have just adopted a baby of less than 4 months, then the man is entitled to paternity leave of about 14 days. So that is what has been approved for men, so that the men and their babies also can bond well together.
This is the first time since 2008 that the federal government is reforming its civil service rules. Nigeria now joins African countries like Kenya, Algeria, Mali and Tanzania in approving the father-friendly policy. Many here want to see government further extend the time to enable new fathers bond better with their babies and help ease the pressure off of their spouses. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
And coming up in your sports news, up next. Kenyan athlete Agnes Tirop found dead at her home in Iten.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
We start your sports with some sad news, where Kenyan athlete Agnes Tirop has been found dead in her house with stab wounds. According to Athletics Kenya, Tirop had stab wounds in her abdomen and